My father was a well-loved pediatrician, known for his warm and compassionate nature. He dedicated his life to helping others, and his kindness touched everyone he met. As his health declined, our family was forced to confront painful truths and difficult decisions, particularly involving my brother Greg and his wife Kate. Greg and I were never close growing up. He had a mischievous streak, always looking for ways to tease or upset me. I still remember the day he let my beloved goldfish go into the river and laughed as I cried. Those memories lingered, shaping my desire to keep my distance from him as we became adults. But life has a way of pulling people together, even when you'd rather stay apart. My husband Robert and I built a peaceful life together. We met in college and shared similar values of kindness and harmony. Robert's calm nature was a balm to my often anxious mind, and he quickly became a beloved member of my family. However, I never anticipated that he and Greg would end up working for the same company. I kept quiet about it, hoping to avoid unnecessary conflict, but their paths inevitably crossed. Greg's marriage to Kate only added to the tension. From our first meeting, I sensed that Kate and I would never get along. Her bold and brash personality clashed with my reserved nature. She made dismissive comments about my appearance and even criticized the timing of my wedding plans, claiming it inconvenienced her and Greg. Despite her sharp tongue, I kept my emotions in check, choosing to avoid conflict rather than escalate the situation. Things took a dramatic turn when Robert was promoted at work, becoming Greg's direct supervisor. Robert's promotion was well-deserved. He'd worked tirelessly on a major project and earned the respect of his colleagues. But Greg's resentment was immediate and intense. He saw Robert's success as a personal affront, and his bitterness began to seep into family gatherings. One evening, my parents hosted a celebratory dinner for Robert's promotion. Greg arrived uninvited, his face twisted with anger. "Why are you prioritizing Robert over your own son?" he demanded of my father. My father, ever the peacemaker, apologized unnecessarily, trying to soothe Greg's wounded pride. The joy of the evening was overshadowed by Greg's hostility, leaving me feeling helpless and heartbroken. Kate's behavior didn't help matters. During another family dinner, she interrupted a sensitive conversation about Robert and me undergoing fertility treatments to announce her own pregnancy. Her timing felt deliberate, as if she wanted to steal the spotlight. While I congratulated her sincerely, I couldn't shake the feeling that her actions were meant to provoke me. Over the years, her comments grew increasingly pointed, often targeting me and later my daughter. Amid this family tension, my father's health took a turn for the worse. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer, a devastating blow to all of us. My father, always the optimist, chose to focus on making the most of his remaining time. He insisted on staying at home, surrounded by family, and Robert and I moved in to help care for him. Greg and Kate's reactions to my father's illness were puzzling. Initially, they stayed away, barely acknowledging the gravity of the situation. But everything changed when my father mentioned discussing his inheritance. Suddenly, Greg and Kate began visiting frequently, their demeanor unnaturally attentive. Their change in behavior was suspicious, and it wasn't long before their true motives became clear. One afternoon, as my father and I returned from a hospital visit, we overheard Greg and Kate talking in the living room. Greg's words sent a chill down my spine. "Dad will be gone soon, so let's just endure this a little longer. The $5 million will be worth it." My father, standing beside me, looked devastated. He shook his head, silently urging me not to confront them. The following day, my father addressed Greg and Kate directly. "You don't need to visit every day," he said. "Take care of your own lives." Greg protested, claiming their visits were out of love and gratitude, but my father's disappointment was evident. Despite their claims, it was clear their actions were driven by greed. As my father's condition worsened, Robert became an even greater source of strength. Balancing work and caregiving, he ensured my father's final days were filled with comfort and dignity. Meanwhile, Greg's life began to unravel. His work performance had declined, and after a heated argument with his supervisor, he was fired. The timing of his dismissal, coinciding with my father's mention of the inheritance, was no coincidence. 2 weeks later, my father passed away peacefully, surrounded by those who truly loved him. Greg and Kate were notably absent during his final moments, their priorities elsewhere. At the funeral, the outpouring of love and respect for my father from the community was overwhelming. It was a stark contrast to Greg and Kate's self-serving attitude. After the funeral, Greg wasted no time bringing up the topic of inheritance. "We need to settle this quickly," he said, his impatience glaringly obvious. Kate chimed in, suggesting an equal split of the $5 million. Their insensitivity was appalling, given how recently we'd lost my father. When my mother revealed my father's will, Greg and Kate's faces turned pale. My father had left the majority of his estate to my mother and me, with a small portion allocated to Greg. The rest was donated to pediatric medicine, a cause my father had always supported. Greg's reaction was explosive. "This isn't fair," he shouted. Kate, ever the manipulator, tried to guilt my mother into reconsidering, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. What Greg hadn't realized was that he had unknowingly signed a renunciation document, forfeiting his claim to the inheritance. My father had anticipated Greg's behavior and took steps to protect his wishes. When Greg demanded an explanation, I reminded him of the document he had signed without reading. "Dad told you to check it carefully," I said, "but you assumed it was about receiving the $5 million. The realization hit Greg hard. He and Kate, having relied on the promise of a fortune, were now left with almost nothing. Greg's impulsive decision to quit his job left them in financial ruin. Desperate, they begged for help, but my mother remained resolute. "The $1,000 in your account was your father's final kindness," she said. "Use it wisely." In the years that followed, Greg and Kate's lives spiraled downward. Stripped of their social standing and financial stability, they moved into a small apartment and struggled to make ends meet. Greg tried to take up odd jobs, but the shame of his circumstances and the animosity he faced made it difficult. Kate, still bitter and resentful, continued to blame everyone but herself. Meanwhile, my mother and I focused on moving forward. Using the inheritance, we renovated the family home, creating a barrier-free environment that was safe and comfortable for her. We filled the home with warmth and laughter, cherishing the memories of my father. The arrival of my first grandchild brought a renewed sense of purpose and joy, a beacon of light after so much darkness. Reflecting on those tumultuous times, I'm reminded of my father's wisdom and strength. His decisions, though difficult, were guided by fairness and love. His legacy lives on, not just in the financial security he provided, but in the values he instilled in us. The peace we've found since his passing is a testament to his foresight and kindness, and I'm determined to honor it by cherishing the family he worked so hard to protect. Despite the heartache and challenges, my father's story is a reminder that integrity and love triumph over greed and bitterness. Greg and Kate may have lost their way, but their choices were their own. For me and my family, my father's legacy remains a guiding light, illuminating the path